Hey everybody, welcome back to West-Tek Solutions. We hope you've had a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and that you've been enjoying your winter. Even here in snowy New York, West-Tek has been staying busy, continuing our path toward Level 1 rocketry certification, including the design, development, and the testing of our first mid-power rocket, the Stratus. And in this video, we're documenting that journey, from designing the rocket in New York to testing it nearly 2,000 miles away in Arizona. After the successful testing of our low-power rocket, the Stratum, we were really excited to move on to mid-power rocketry. Mid-power rocketry is typically defined as rockets flying on E, F, and G-sized motors. These motors produce around 5 to 10 times the thrust and impulse of the motors that we used for our previous project, the Stratum. That jump in power brought us new challenges and new opportunities. Let's go over the project goals. From the start, we set a few clear goals with the Stratus project. First, we wanted a completely in-house design, something that was entirely West-Tek designed. Additionally, we also wanted the rocket to be fully 3D printed. We also wanted to design the rocket to fly on 24mm mid-power motors. We also wanted this rocket to have a dedicated payload bay, and this would enable the Stratus to be our first rocket to capture telemetry data, specifically altitude. And then generally, we wanted to support a design philosophy that supported more threaded parts and less glue. We went straight to Tinkercad to start designing the fin can. The tapered swept fins were inspired by the iconic Goblin fin design. If you watched our video on our low-powered rocket, the Stratum, then you might recognize this shock cord anchor that we brought over from that design as well. The motor mount was designed to snugly fit a 24mm cardboard motor tube, which acts as a thermal barrier to help protect the printed plastic from the motor heat. The threaded system on this rocket was actually designed by our cousin Hansen all the way up in Fairbanks, Alaska. It works so well that we've since incorporated it into our smaller Stratum rockets, and we're actually still using it on our L1 prototype rocket, which you can see behind me. The body of the Stratus rocket was split into 3 threaded sections. A lower body with a recessed thread to cover the shock cord anchor, so that as you thread it over, it actually covers up where the shock cord is mounted to the fin can. Bam, just like that. A mid-body section that threaded on top, and a detachable payload bay, which itself threaded directly onto the nose cone. And then the nose threads off. One issue we ran into was that some parts, especially the fin can, would export from Tinkercad with random geometric artifacts. This appears to be a known issue. Between that and the fact that Tinkercad doesn't preserve your build history once you close a session, we realized that we've probably outgrown Tinkercad, and future West-Tek rockets will be designed in Fusion 360. And before we knew it, most of our goals were already complete. We had a totally uniquely designed 3D printed threaded rocket with a payload section. Well, then the big question is, what goes inside the payload bay? For this project, we decided to keep things simple and use a store-bought digital altimeter. In future builds, we're going to experiment with custom electronics, but for now, reliability was the priority. We initially went with the standard Estes digital altimeter, but as you'll see later in the video, we ran into some issues with it, and we eventually switched over to the Jolly Logic altimeter, courtesy of my brother Bob. Before flying with the Jolly Logic altimeter, we actually tested it by taking it on a hike in the Arizona mountains, and it clocked elevation changes right up to 450 feet, which gave us a lot of confidence going into the flight testing. So there's actually 2 main versions of the Stratus rocket. There's the Stratus 1, which does not have threads or a payload section. This was our initial prototype. And then the Stratus 2, which does have the threads and the payload section. We tested the Stratus 1 on Estes D12-3 motors, including a launch actually on the same day that we filmed our Halloween video, and it performed flawlessly. So we use a 12-inch parachute with a hole in the middle.
With a cutout.
It's a little heavy, so we were concerned about the altitude, but I mean, it flew straight and got at least 800 feet, so pretty happy about that.
Yep.
The Stratus 2, however, was a different story. We performed the first Stratus 2 test on Estes D12-7 motors. That 7 refers to the delay time, meaning that the rocket waits 7 seconds after apogee before deploying the parachute. For a rocket this heavy and relatively slow, that delay was simply too long. In both flights, the rocket had already started falling nose down before deployment. This resulted in damage to the parachute, and in one case, the parachute ripping off entirely. This was a good reminder that motor selection is an integral part of the overall design process, and that even a few seconds of difference in delay time can have a major impact on the outcome of a flight. So on top of all that, just to add insult to injury, the Estes altimeter failed to report any data.
No reading. Damn.
Since the altimeter uses barometric pressure to calculate the altitude, we suspected that the payload bay might be pressurized during flight, but even after we drilled holes in the payload section, we were unable to get any readings on it. So I don't know if this is an operator's error or if we got a faulty unit, but we decided to swap it out for the Jolly Logic. So at this point, the Stratus project was kind of in a weird spot. Some things had gone really well and some things hadn't. There were a lot of things up in the air. And it was during this awkward limbo phase where we packed up and went to Arizona. As the holidays approached, my brother Bob and I flew out to Tucson, Arizona to visit family for Christmas. Not only was it a much-needed break from winter and a great opportunity to reconnect with family, but it also gave us a unique opportunity. The opportunity to test the Stratus rocket on a more powerful E-class motor in the wide-open desert. After some research, we discovered that SARA, the Southern Arizona Rocketry Association, would be holding a launch event just outside of Tucson while we were in town. We couldn't pass that up. So we printed 2 new Stratus rockets, packed them up, and shipped them to Arizona ahead of our trip. Now imagine this. After a long drive into the desert outside Tucson, we arrive at our first ever organized launch day, surrounded by seasoned rocketry veterans. And for the first time, a West-Tek rocket was about to fly in front of an audience that actually knew what they were looking at. So how did it go? Yeah, I'll let the video speak for itself. So what you just saw is called a CATO, stands for catastrophic motor failure. In other words, the rocket exploded just above the launch pad. You can see the fin can separate from the body and pinwheel off before fracturing in half. The payload bay was snapped in 2, and if you look closely, you can see our brand new Jolly Logic altimeter flying off into the desert. Now here's the interesting part. We were the only ones shocked by this, because as soon as everybody else at the event heard that we were launching this rocket on an Estes E12-4 motor, everybody lined up expecting a fireball, and boy did they get it. Apparently these motors have a reputation for occasional CATOs. Thankfully, the event organizers reassured us that this wasn't due to our design, and they pointed us to Terry, who apparently had a simple trick to help prevent this from happening again. The explosion was caused by the clay cap at the bottom of the motor being dislodged during ignition. And Terry's method involved placing a small bead of CA glue, or super glue, around that clay cap to help it keep seated during the ignition. Well, the good news is we had 3 motors left. The bad news is they were all E12 motors and we only had 1 more rocket. So the question became, do we roll the dice? I like having these rockets as gesture props. It's very intimidating having rockets pointed at you. Well, we came this far. So we loaded up our final Stratus 2 rocket, applied Terry's fix, and headed back to the launch pad. And how did it go? I'll let the video speak for itself.
Bring the range up hot. Okay, A1 is hot. Ranges go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch.
The flight was beautiful. The Stratus arced into the sky, deployed a chute cleanly, and drifted gently back to Earth, well within sight of the launch pad. And there was no damage to the rocket. And the altimeter worked perfectly, recording an altitude of 855 feet. And with that, the Stratus project was officially a success. We had designed, 3D printed, and flown a threaded mid-power rocket with a payload bay and successfully captured telemetry data. And with that, there was really nothing else to do but sit back and enjoy the rest of the event. This was our first high-power launch event, and honestly, it was very humbling. We watched rockets fly on L1, L2, and even L3 motors, and experiencing that power in person was just incredible. Everybody at SARA was welcoming, supportive, and incredibly generous with their time, along with everybody else that attended the event, and a special shout out to Dan and Nate Grossman, who were kind enough to take some time out of their day to show us all the fascinating stuff that they're working on in rocketry. Nate Grossman actually has a YouTube channel of his own, which I'll link below if you want to see the cool stuff that he's doing in the rocketry space. So big thank you to the Southern Arizona Rocketry Association for having us, all the kind people that were at the event, all the volunteers that made it possible, all the family that have supported us along the way, and of course to everyone watching this video. Thank you very much. So our next big project is going to be getting our L1 certification. Actually, we have the prototype behind me. You want to see that? Look at this thing. Now, can you imagine the gestures I can do with this thing? Hey, listen here, buddy. Now, come on, you got to subscribe if you want to see this thing go in the air. So yeah, we'll be documenting the development process for our L1 rocket, And we have some other really silly and goofy and funny videos coming up along the way. So I hope you guys will stick around. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next West-Tek Solutions video. Happy flying.